There's probably no organization out there today that has embraced the ethos of experimentation with more vigor and more rigor than Intuit, the $4 billion leader in financial services software. So about 8 years ago, Scott Cook, who's the founder and chairman of Intuit and a product of Procter & Gamble, he literally grew up, management by spreadsheet, got really sick of the big company approach to decision making inside Intuit. He called it the 3 Ps: politics, PowerPoint, and persuasion. I'm sure you're not familiar with that whatsoever. And so he got together with his CEO, Brad Smith, and they basically said, what could we replace that with? And they set out to create decision by experimentation as a way of life inside Intuit. Today, that is not just a mindset, it's an actual methodology in which everybody is trained. And let me just tell you quickly how it works. If you want to start something new inside Intuit, you're a small team of people, you hold what's called a pain storm, which means you go spend 2 or 3 weeks with customers where they work and live, breathing alongside them, understanding their every need, frustration, wish, hope, dream, and fear. And by the end of that, not surprisingly, the assumptions you walked in with are normally shattered. Within 2 weeks of holding a pain storm, they hold a solution jam. And the idea there is to very quickly generate as many solutions as possible to all of those pain points that they uncovered, and then to very quickly zero in on a manageable set that you could develop further and test, which they do 2 weeks later with a code jam, and the object there is to very quickly generate something tangible, a piece of code, a storyboard, a video, a FACO website, whatever it is that you can put in front of customers and very quickly test and get their feedback. Now, this isn't rocket science. This is just their proprietary blend of design thinking meets the scientific method. But the point is, they have turned it into a methodology, and they've trained everybody in it, and they got away from that traditional approach to getting things started in organizations, which looks something like this, right? We spend all of our time on the front end perfecting our plan, getting funding, getting buy-in before we even take our first move. And instead, they replaced it with something that looks like this, a very iterative cycle of designing things, testing, learning, recalibrating, iterating. And I'll just tell you a very quick story of what this looks like in practice. So several years ago, a small team in the tax department had a question. They wanted to ask themselves, could we create a tax prep experience that a millennial could love? Something fast and easy where you're not spending a ton of time and brain power on your taxes. And they went out into the wild with that question. And not surprisingly, given the audience they were working with, they very quickly got to sort of a mobile solution. And they were testing out one piece of their solution whereby you could take a picture of your W-2 with the phone in your camera and get the process going very quickly to Uncle Sam. And not surprisingly, given this audience, they sort of said, that's cool, but could you do this sort of like a one-click swipe right and you're done kind of thing? And so with those instructions, they went back and they basically created just that. It's called SnapTax. And it really is just a couple clicks for the vast majority of tax returns that are the 1040EZ or the comparable form in other countries. Within 2 weeks of this going up on the Android and the Apple platform, it beat out Angry Birds as the #1 app out there. They were getting feedback like this, my favorite: I want this app to have my babies. You can't beat that with a stick. So this has been downloaded millions of times. It's been replicated in a bunch of different countries. But my point here is that Intuit runs thousands of experiments like this every single year. And they've turned their organization into a kind of a lab where any new idea, any new initiative, whoever you are and whatever the idea is, goes through this process, this evidence-based process of testing it in the real world with real customers. And Scott Cook goes so far as to say, the more important the idea is, the more important it is to test it this way. So right now, they have an organization of 8,000 people who are uniquely tuned in to customer needs and market signals and equipped to turn all of that insight and all of that empathy really quickly into new solutions for customers.